All right, for the letter F, let's talk about the principle of forgiveness. A very simple definition: dealing with the wrongs in the right way. Not just I'm sorry, but rather I was wrong. Will you forgive me? Ephesians 4:32, forgive one another as quickly and thoroughly as God in Christ forgave you. We have come to understand in our family circle that this was our greatest conflict resolution tool, the principle of forgiveness. I need to give you a story of the difference between I'm sorry and I was wrong. Will you forgive me? It was quite a few years ago, Valentine's Day, or close to it. I came home in the late afternoon with a beautiful corsage for my wife. We were going to a Valentine's banquet that evening. Now, when I gave her that corsage, she responded like all ladies do with flowers. Do you understand how that is? There's a few ladies here. Yes. She responded just absolutely beyond what I was expecting. In fact, I watched her. The corsage was in a little plastic bag in the box. She took the corsage out of the plastic bag, took it over to the sink and the water faucet, and sprinkled a little bit of water in it so that it wouldn't wilt, put it back in the bag, into the box, into the refrigerator. No wilting of her special flower. Anyhow, when she had finished, I left the room and went back to the back bedroom area, to the bathroom. And before I could get back out, she and all three kids left. Didn't say where they were going, how long they were going to be gone, but were just gone. I said to myself, that's a little uncharacteristic, but she must have had good reason. In a few minutes, I say a few minutes, it wasn't very long, she came back and presented me with my favorite box of candy for Valentine's Day.
Our gift of love to Dad.
My response was not very well, not very good. I said, why in the world did you have to get that candy? I don't need any candy, and besides, that's not a good way to spend our money. She headed for the bedroom, sprawled across the bed, and began to sob. I went in and laid down beside her, and I said, honey, I'm sorry.
I know you're sorry.
And she went right on crying. I said, didn't she hear me? I said, honey, I'm really sorry.
I know you're sorry.
And went right on crying. Well, by this time, I realized that my approach wasn't accomplishing the desired result. So I left the room. We had a big, huge house in South Seattle, went down to the basement, and God and I had a meeting. In a few minutes, I went back. She was still crying there on the bed. I laid down beside her and I said, honey, my response to your demonstration of love was completely wrong. Will you forgive me?
Why, sure.
Now, what was the difference? When I was saying I'm sorry, I was saying what you did was unnecessary. You know, I was excusing myself, but I was still pointing the finger in her direction. But when I said I was wrong, will you forgive me, I was accepting all of the blame and not pointing any finger in her direction. This is a principle that we learned a lot of years ago. It's called the balance scale. On one side is our guilt when we know that we've done something that we shouldn't have done. On the other side is what we blame the other person. And even with Jesus in our heart, our tendency when we begin to feel a little guilty is to want to point the finger of blame in the other direction and try to balance that scale out. I'm here to tell you, I've tried that enough times to let you know it does not work. Never has it worked to just say I'm sorry when I know I have hurt the one that I love. So, to get that scale back to balance, the one who is guilty needs to say, I was wrong, will you forgive me? And the other person will respond.
I don't want to get left holding the bag. So
No.
yes, I forgive you.
If you ask for forgiveness and the other person does not grant that forgiveness, then God does his part and that scale will go like this. So our practice over the years has come very definitively to when one of us asks for forgiveness, the other one will say, you're forgiven. Now, will you forgive me too?
Most of the time. Sometimes it's all one-sided.
Well, this illustration is not good in that I was 99 and
100%. 100.
Is somebody hearing what I heard? I was 100% wrong.
That doesn't happen very often.
In the practice of learning this discipline, we got caught up in working the percentages. I was only 30 and you were 70, so you need to take the step and ask forgiveness. No, no, no. Even if I'm only one, I'm just as responsible for that 1% as my wife is for her 99%. Oh, and it goes the other way around.
That's right, that's right.
It goes the other way around.
This principle has been so important in our family. When we started our family ministry in 1993, we asked all of our grown children who were then in their 20s to evaluate us as parents. And without conferring with each other, they pretty much all said the same thing, but I want to read from Carmen's letter. One thing I learned from my parents that I now appreciate most is a principle of forgiveness. When we did something wrong, it was never enough to just say, I'm sorry. Anyone can say they're sorry and not really mean it. We were taught to say, I was wrong. Will you forgive me? Believe me, those words were the hardest words to say at times, but I always felt so much better when I said them. I can remember times when I would stubbornly refuse to say, will you forgive me, and was miserable until I would actually say the words. The principle was not just something that they expected from us children, it was one that they put into practice themselves. I can remember many times hearing mom and dad ask forgiveness from each other as well as from each of us. I'm sure that mom and dad would be the first to admit that they didn't have all the answers, nor did they always do the right thing, but they were quick to admit it and to ask forgiveness. Even though mom and dad have related to me several times the occasions where they had to ask my forgiveness, I don't remember any of those times because forgiveness was asked and given. Do you know how freeing that is? And each of the kids said the same thing. They really couldn't remember what we did wrong because of this principle of forgiveness.
Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future. Dr. David Jeremiah.
Forgiveness doesn't make the other person right. It just frees us.
Forgiveness is God's gift to us in a world that's not fair.
We can stop forgiving others when Christ stops forgiving us.
Nothing is ever settled until it is settled right.
Every strong and healthy relationship is made up of two good forgivers.